What's up everybody, I'm Brea Thorne and welcome to the channel. Today we are reviewing a custom pre-built from Skytech, and this is from their special builder, which is the Mark 9 40 series, Mark 40. It's the custom builder on their site where you can actually go in and get 4080, 4090 cards. I haven't checked it since the 7000 series Radeon cards were released. They might be in there too now. Now, this is not a sponsored video from Skytech, though Skytech did provide the system to me for review, and I do get to keep it. That, if you've seen any of my previous Skytech reviews, or any other system integrator reviews, you know that when that happens, that doesn't affect whether or not I will totally roast them if there's something wrong with it. That is my job, and I find that that's something that I actually can offer to system integrators. Hey, let me be a secondary QC for you. Find any potential issues that you have, and if you look at the last Skytech review, we found a couple of things, and that is success. That's a good thing. It's good for you guys, and it's good for the system integrator. So this is not a sponsored video. They don't approve any of the things that I say. They don't get to see it before it gets published. They watch it the same time you do. Hi Skytech guys, how's it going? Welcome to the video. This is gonna be a weird one. Now also, Intel was a big part of making this possible as well, and they also were not able to see this ahead of time. There were no money changed hands. So this is my honest take on the system, the build, and there's a lot to go over, a lot to unpack here. So as you'll see, we're not gonna pull any punches here. It's a wonderful machine, but getting here was a pretty bumpy road. So let's get into it. This review is actually a long time coming. There's a reason for that. This is not gonna be a normal review. And that's because of, well, the woes of early adoption. Allow me to explain. So this is an amazing PC. It's fantastic. It basically, the goal was to have it be the best PC that Skytech could conceivably build based on the parts they had at the time. And it really was. Now, since it is Intel that made this possible, thank you Intel for that. And of course, since it is currently topping the charts, this has the Intel Raptor Lake i9 13900K. That is 8 performance cores, 16 efficiency cores, 24 cores, 32 threads, an absolute monster of a CPU. And cooling that is a big job. We'll get to the cooling part soon. Now the GPU is likewise a monstrosity. It is the NVIDIA RTX 4090, and that is the Asus TUF Gaming Edition of that card. It is an absolute unit. It takes up nearly the length of the entire inside of the case. This is not a small case. This is the Phanteks P500A, and it's a fantastic case. You have the option for this or the Fractal Meshify 2XL, I believe. Both great options. This one is just an absolute looker, and it also, both of those cases, fit a 420 millimeter all-in-one cooler radiator, which is important because of that 13900K and its accompanying temperatures, which can hit 100 degrees Celsius, depending on what boost you're running in your BIOS. The cooler in question is the Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 420 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler, and this is also, of course, got all RGB fans everywhere, including on the top as well. And the motherboard, well, we'll get to the motherboard. And that's why this is not a normal review for you. The RAM that we have in here is Kingston Fury Beast DDR5 6000 megatransfers per second. And that's actually running in 2-channel 2 DIMMs. So that's 4 sticks of RAM, 2 DIMMs per channel. And yeah, it's absolutely hitting the advertised speeds, and everything's been stable. So it's really a beautiful, beautiful machine. And unlike most of my reviews that I've done for Skytech, iBuyPower, other system integrators, I actually set this one up as my primary PC for a while to really put it through its paces, put it through my workflow, because this should be a content creation beast. The 13900K is it is absolutely fantastic at editing video, of course with Intel's QuickSync and that 4090 in play with very fast DDR5 at a capacity of 64 gigs. I mean, you have all the elements possible in anything but a full-on dedicated video editing workstation. Now, to power all of this, you need quite a power supply. And that's going to come from Thermaltake. This is a Tough Power GF3 1350 watt ATX 3.0 power supply, or PCIe 5.0, however you want to call it. It has the native 12+4 pin connector for this 4090. So there's a full-on dedicated cable, a straight cable from the power supply to the GPU. And of course, we know now that the melting connectors were not the fault of that design, although the design doesn't lend itself well to being plugged in fully, which you need to make sure it's clicked in there, plugged in fully. It's kind of easy to mess it up. So but I've had zero issues with running this, no burning smells. Everything's been great. Now for our primary OS drive, our storage, it's running a 1 terabyte Western Digital WD Black SN850X, very fast drive. And of course, because I'm using this as my main machine, I needed to add more drives. I migrated my storage drives over. Now, before we get too far into the actual review, let's talk about the unboxing experience, because this one was different and it was pretty fun. So let's check that out. This video is sponsored by VIP CDK Deals.
Let me show you guys how it works. Check this out. So this, of course, is VIP CDK Deals. My recommendation is to just go to the links in the description and just click on that because it takes you right to it. However, if you do go directly to vip-cdkdeals.com and you go right here, you just type in Windows. There we go. There are the different versions that you can get. Now, I need to actually get Windows 11 Pro. That is what was installed. So basically, you search Windows, you grab this one right here, if that's the one that you've got, and then here we go. But if we hit Buy Now, it's going to add it to your cart. But it is currently $31.60 to get Windows 11. If you're doing DIY stuff, you can install Windows 10, which is cheaper. It comes out to 15, 16 bucks with my discount added on. And then you can just get the free upgrade to Windows 11. So just get Windows 10 Pro and then do the free upgrade if you want. So with this, we do BRAE25, bam. Brings it from $31.60 to $22.12 for an OEM copy of Windows 11 Pro. I have used several of these keys on several systems and have never had an issue. Okay, and then once you've made your purchase, you can go to View Keys/Codes, and right here you see my Windows 11 Pro key right there. So I take a look at the code. Now, quick way to get to your activation settings. All right, you can right click on the Windows button right there, and then go to Settings. Or you can actually go to Search and start typing in activation, and it'll just bring it right up right there. So change our product key right here and just paste it in. And there we go. Windows is activated, I'm good to go. If you have any issues with your key and you know that you have the right key for your operating system, just go ahead and send an email to their customer service and they'll get you fixed up. Out of all the time that I've had these guys sponsoring the channel, I've only heard of it happening twice to 2 different members of the community, and there's a lot more people than that who have purchased from CDK Deals. So thank you, VIP CDK Deals, for continuing to support the channel. Y'all are one of the reasons I've been able to go on some of these trips to PAX West, PAX East, DreamHack Dallas, and TwitchCon. Thank you so much for all the support. I appreciate you guys. And let's move on to the rest of the video.
Holy moly. Now that's a box. What's up, everybody? I'm back here. Hi, I'm Brea Thorne, and this is it. This is a Skytech Mark 9 40 series system, and good Lord, they sent a massive box with this thing. I'm not sure why, and I don't know if that's going to be standard operating procedure for any Mark 9 40 series configured systems. It even has this thing where if it gets manhandled at all in shipping, this turns red. This is for shock. If it gets shocked in any way, this turns red, and it's not red. So this is good. I like that. But yeah, this is massive. And Skytech, I don't know if y'all know this, but my little studio space here is upstairs. And every time I get a box from you guys, it's bigger. It's bigger. They keep getting bigger. And that's every system integrator, actually. So maybe I should start reviewing ITX systems. That's probably the plan. I know it's another Skytech unboxing, the 4th one this year, but the thing is, Intel keeps making this possible. They keep saying, like, hey, we want you guys to send out a system. And Skytech keeps being like, we should send it to Brea Thorne. So here we go, and it's very helpful because as a tech YouTuber, I need hardware and I can't just buy it. So Skytech knows very well, especially if you watch the review of the last system that I unboxed from them and tested on stream, that they know very well that giving me hardware isn't gonna change what I say about it. You know, they don't get to see this before time because I'm live. So, and then of course this video gets edited for YouTube. So it is not something that I'm paid for. They do let me keep the hardware, but that is more from Intel than from Skytech. And Skytech knows if I see any issues or any problems, I will undoubtedly make mention of it and focus on that and make sure that they know where improvements could be made. That has actually been a great thing. It's and of course, as you guys know, there was recently a review of a Mark IX custom system. That system did not turn out well, and it showed a lack. It was just like the system I reviewed, the Mark VII system, I guess a couple months ago. Just like that one, there were QC issues, and it showed a glaring issue with the overall QC process and build process for the Mark systems. And that's the good thing is, like, that last system was not built live on stream. This is something that I tell you guys all the time though. If you're gonna get a system from Skytech and you're purchasing it through the configurator, remember, the QC issues were not with their pre-configured, pre-built systems. Those have a very standard way of being built. It's usually quite good. And I haven't had those kind of QC issues when I've gotten systems like the Prism 2 and the Azure. And then suddenly with the Mark VII system, there were QC issues. So I went over a few things in the video before, and I've also responded to the review from Gamers Nexus, but then again, so did Skytech. And the response was awesome. Here it is, I'll pop it up on the screen. And as you guys can see, this is how companies should respond when they mess up. This is how they should respond. But the fact that I've been telling people to get their systems built live on stream, I feel better about making that recommendation, because neither my system, the Mark VII, or the Mark IX that Gamers Nexus got were built live on stream. It's a free option that you can choose at checkout, and it generally means that you're gonna have transparency with your build. You get to watch it being done live on Twitch. It's awesome. It gives you a lot more peace of mind, removes the anxiety, and I highly, highly recommend that free service. And that's what we had done with this guy. Did I turn off? Did that? No, okay, it's still good. Not too much shock right there. That's what I had done here. That's right. Jimmy and Juan on stream, throwing this thing together. And yes, Jimmy, I'm including you. You did handle that giant chonky 4090, because yeah, this has a 4090 and a 13900K. There are some caveats to some of that. I'm gonna go over that after I unbox it, but let's get to the unboxing. The crazy thing is the last system had the Fantex P500A, and so does this one. Oh, sweet. I get it now. I know what happened. I know why they boxed it up like this. It was my fault for requesting the original packaging for the GPU to display. Because, you know, tech YouTuber, if I'm gonna have a 4090, I'd like to have the box to display. And they did send it. And they might have even sent the GPU in it. Oh man, is it? I think it is in here. Oh my God, okay. We're gonna do this very carefully. I have no idea how to get this box out of here. It's too much box. So guys, remember, I say it every time. Keep all of your packaging, all of it. Maybe not that giant extra box, but the box is basically is a box for the case. You want to keep that and the foam that comes with it. I will continue to tell you all that every time. Ah yes, special power cable for this power supply. You'll see, you don't lose this. You don't want to lose this. But of course, this is the same thing that we got with the last system right here. All of the accessories for the P500A, which of course includes one of my favorite things from one of the things that makes me really like Fantex, is that all the case screws come in one of those. Like, how freaking awesome is that? And then you got a couple hard drive bays and some other things here as well. This is very similar to the last unboxing because we use the same case, just in a different color. GPU anti-sag bracket and a, looks like a sort of beauty panel there. And there it is. Oh yeah, that's a looker right there. And yep, they didn't put the GPU in there. Take a look at this. Now, I always tell you guys with this doesn't seem too tight in here because again, there's no GPU in there, but be careful pulling these out, these Instapacks, because they can snag on cables and you yank them out, and then you have to figure out what cable's out and then put it back in. But yeah, as you can see, perfect. God, that is such a cool looking CPU block. Oh yeah. What we've got here so far, and I can show you guys this now, we have an MSI MAG Carbon Wi-Fi Z790. And yes, we have more connectivity with this thing. It is a really, really nice motherboard, very solid looking. Great aesthetics on this thing. 4 sticks of DDR5 6000 megatransfers per second. Each one is 16 gigs, so that's going to be 64 gigs over 4 sticks. That is something that should not be a problem for the memory controller in the 13900K, the Intel i9 13900K. Again, much appreciated Intel for making this possible, and I really am interested in seeing how this beast was tamed, because it is a beast. It is an absolute beast. It is their flagship. They really just pulled out all the stops and made sure that it would leave nothing but performance and destruction in its wake. Well, just like last time, everything looks pretty good. There are some loose connections. It looks like this came undone right here. Oh, I think this is for the cooler. I think I just forgot to plug this in. I would say that that's probably a downside of building live on stream, is that you're live streaming. You don't need me to tell you that live streaming sometimes means that you make a little boo-boo here and there, but that's something that's like not like what we saw with the systems that were, you know, from my review, or actual full-on QC issues. This is something that a quick call to tech support would fix, because they'd be like, let's look at that side panel. Okay, that's unplugged. Let's plug that into a motherboard header or something like that. This, as you see, is very clean management of the 12VH PWR connector here, and it is a straight run with dedicated thick gauge wires. So I am very confident with this ATX 3.0 power supply that we're gonna be very happy with that. It's not gonna have any problems. It's not gonna get all toasty on me. That's one thing that I've found and that I've liked about Skytech, is if I ever do find something, it's usually something completely fixable very easily. So this is nothing compared to actually having an issue where your system won't run. Let's check some screw tightness here. There was one screw that needed a couple turns along the top there. That's it. But yeah, something to watch out for. So, okay, this is already routed, ready to go. We can go ahead and put in our GPU here. Time to open up this guy right here. Gosh, look at that. Yeah, we're looking at an Asus TUF Gaming GeForce RTX 4090. I will give you guys a reminder, most of you do not need one of these. If you want a high-end card, wait for the 4080 or the new 7000 series Radeon cards. Oh, geez. Good Lord, this thing is massive. Okay. Well, there she is. The little chrome accents on the fans, sick. Absolutely, this is a really gorgeous card. Good Lord, it's huge. Okay, let's get this bad boy in here. Let's see what it looks like. I want to see if I'm going to be able to even put any capture card in this system. And there she goes. Basically, if you're going to be doing this, just line it up with the open slots there and with the X16 PCIe slot here, and then just press it firmly till it clicks. And then carefully line that up and click it in until you can't pull it out. It needs to click in. Now we are ready to actually see what this thing looks like when it's turned on. Let's do that. Go. 3, 2, 1. Oh yeah.
Let's talk about the motherboard. The motherboard that was used in the build. That one is no longer in it. You see, when you're an early adopter, when there's a new platform out, and Skytech was at the forefront of having a configurator that accommodated the 4090, 13th gen Intel, all of those things, they were way ahead of the game. There will be some teething issues, and that is why sometimes it's not the best move if you're new to PCs and not very good at troubleshooting yet. It's not the best move to get the latest and greatest thing, because that might not actually be the greatest for you. Either you wait a few months for BIOS updates, things like that, or you get something that is a bit more matured in how long the technology has been out. The issue that we ran into was in the motherboard that it came with, and it was not this one. This is actually the box for the Asus ROG Maximus Z690 Formula motherboard that Skytech sent me to replace the motherboard that they had sent with it, which they then, I had issues with it. I had issues with storage that didn't quite start with the motherboard, but the motherboard certainly wasn't helping. Now, one of the points of this review was to really highlight the build quality that you get from Skytech when you build through their custom builder, their Mark system. You know, Mark 5, Mark 7, Mark 9, all those. And certainly the build quality on this was fantastic. However, there was a bit of an issue that is one of those things that even if you're an experienced builder, like Juan, it's because this was built live on stream. Jimmy and Juan were on the case, and Juan did an amazing job building this system. And they have a standard policy over there that makes a lot of sense on the surface. So just to show you this here, this is a motherboard that was sent with the system that we configured it with. This is the MSI Z790 MPG Carbon Wi-Fi. A very, very nice motherboard with a lot of options on it. I mean, it's absolutely very heavy. You have 5 M.2 sockets on this on board. No add-in cards or anything, which does actually move down the primary X16 slot, PCIe slot, where your GPU goes, that was actually a problem because I couldn't fit the capture card in there. With that being the case, that was a bit rough. But this is an interesting motherboard that had interesting issues. One thing that occurred, and I mentioned that this is something that any builder can run into. This can happen if you don't really dig into the manual for the motherboards that you're looking at when speccing out a build. The sort of rule of thumb when they're doing a build over there at Skytech is to use the topmost M.2 socket. That's the one that is closest to the CPU, and you'll actually hear Linus talking about how that's what he recommends as well. Though I very much appreciate Intel making all of this possible, my job is not to then obfuscate the truth, and if there is something that bothers me or I see as a shortcoming, sort of gloss over that. It's not my job here, and if I did those things, I wouldn't belong on this channel, and you shouldn't be watching these videos. But that is not how I am, and if I see something that is a shortcoming, I will definitely touch on that for sure. And one shortcoming of both Z690 and Z790 for both 12th and 13th gen respectively on Intel on their processors, both of those chipsets will accommodate PCIe Gen 5. Exactly 16 lanes of that. Now, that's a great technology to have, and there actually aren't any consumer products yet that even utilize PCIe Gen 5, but the whole idea of it is to accommodate GPUs that will eventually come out with PCIe Gen 5. I was kind of expecting that NVIDIA or AMD or both, with their recently launched card, before they launched, I was expecting them to have PCIe Gen 5. But with the throughput that they can, even with what the 4090 can do, it doesn't require PCIe Gen 5. PCIe Gen 4 is just fine. However, different motherboards have different PCIe layouts. And when you have pretty much any Intel motherboard that says that it's going to have PCIe Gen 5 on an M.2 socket, because there are only 16 lanes. If you use any Gen 5 M.2 sockets, this has 2 of them. You will then have only 8 of your 16 PCIe Gen 5 lanes. Now, GPUs up until the 4090, which the 4090 is actually getting up there when it comes to the throughput that can actually nearly saturate 16 lanes of PCIe Gen 4. Most GPUs, even your 3080, 3080 Ti, 3090, 3090 Ti, maybe the 4080 actually, but I'm not too sure. Most of them won't even come close to saturating the whole amount of bandwidth that you get with PCIe Gen 4, 16 lanes of that. However, with something like the 4090, apparently it's getting there, it's starting to get there, and I actually experienced some pretty interesting results because, of course, the drive was installed on that first socket there, and that meant that we were only getting 8 lanes of PCIe Gen 5. Now, Braythorn, you might say, if it's 8 lanes of PCIe Gen 5, that's just as much bandwidth as 16 lanes of PCIe Gen 4, because it just literally doubles the bandwidth per generation. And I'm over here saying, of course, there shouldn't be a problem, right? If the GPU was PCIe Gen 5, which it's not, it's Gen 4. So if 8 of those lanes are in use so that you can use, that's why you have 2 Gen 5 M.2 sockets, because you can get their 4 lanes each. So that's 8 there, and then 8 here, or you don't use these and you get a full 16. If the GPU just cannot communicate over 8 lanes and it only has 8 to use, it's going to communicate at its own fastest, own highest bandwidth, its own top spec, which is even the 4090 PCIe Gen 4. So you're basically getting the equivalent speed of 16 lanes of PCIe Gen 3. That's hardly ideal, you might say. Now, even with that, there have been plenty of articles and lots of testing to show that you can still pretty much run at that without any major problems. However, I actually did my own testing, and I did it repeatedly. The testing I ran in both 3D Mark Port Royal and in 3D Mark Time Spy, which is important, I'll get to that in a second, both showed a significant loss in performance at X8, which was kind of surprising. I wanted to go over to X16 and just move the drive and go to X16 so I could test that out and see if, well, is there a problem with the PC or is it really just that bandwidth issue? The problem was, when I moved this drive to any other socket, there's 1, 2, and 3 more sockets on here. When I moved it to any other socket, it would not boot. It would not boot from that drive. It would just cycle. It would just boot cycle. Just boot cycle over and over and over and over. Now, before you grab your torches and pitchforks, something to remember about system integrators is that they exist to integrate systems. They're not OEMs. They don't manufacture their own components like motherboards. This right here, installing it in one M.2 socket when it probably should have been in one of these, just looking at the spec, looking at the manual of the motherboard, this is gonna cut that in half. Even if it's not gonna affect it much, you just don't wanna cut off half of the bandwidth for your GPU, just for good measure. You wanna have all of it if possible. That should not have been a problem, to just move the drive. It should have been fine. So that is actually on MSI. That is MSI's bad. And I will tell you this, my sample size is not very broad here, but I had a system from a different system integrator that had an X670 motherboard from MSI that had its own issues with dumping memory, the Wi-Fi card just disappearing, not physically, just not working anymore. So I'm swapping that motherboard too. So I mean, it's some of the boards from say the previous generation, Z690, X570 from MSI were fantastic. So I'm definitely not saying do not buy MSI products, but I would probably wait until some BIOS updates come out because there was nothing available, of course, for this. So the move that we made was to say, hey, this is top tier. This is supposed to be a top tier system. Let's look at another motherboard. And I suggested the Asus ROG Maximus Z690 formula. First off, it's one of the most beautiful motherboards ever made. I've kind of always wanted one. And for a white build, there's pretty much no better choice when you're going very high end. It's kind of cost prohibitive, the reason I hadn't purchased it myself. But Skytech was very open to this when I told them about it. I said, let's go Z690. There really aren't many benefits to going Z790 because one thing I was hoping for was Z790, more PCIe Gen 5 lanes for storage purposes and chipset communication to chipset throughput, I/O, all of that. They didn't change that. There really isn't much performance benefits with going with Z790. There are some features there, and they did improve I/O and DDR5 memory compatibility, but that also has to just do with 13th gen chips. I mean, here I am running 4 sticks of DDR5, 6,000 megatransfers per second, 16 gigs each to get 64 gigs, and it's running perfectly. I mean, I've been running that for like nearly 2 months with no problems. Month and a half, 2 months, yeah. Editing video, doing Photoshop, graphic design, not much gaming, but some gaming, streaming, and I mean, crazy things that I do on streaming using Motion Studio and all that without problems. So my advice to you is to first off look if you're looking at a Z790 motherboard, check if there have been any revisions since the initial release. It's very easy to do. You just go to the manufacturer's website, look up that motherboard, and then go to support, and then downloads, and BIOS will be there. See if there's been a revision. If there has, you're probably safe going with that board. They've ironed a few wrinkles out, but my primary suggestion is to go with a Z690 motherboard. You're gonna save money. It's a more matured BIOS that's been out for over a year. And all they had to do to get 13th gen chips in there was to do an update to where they added 13th gen processor compatibility. There you go. And I'm still running that same memory setup on a Z690 motherboard. So you can't really just attribute that to, you know, it being Z790, that it ran on this just fine. Now, all that rambling aside, we have to address the elephant in the room. Skytech thankfully trusted me enough to have me swap out the motherboard. I mean, been building PCs for almost 25 years. I think I can do that pretty well, and they trusted me on that. So, and the build has been running beautifully now. But when you do something like that, it's really difficult to say this is a review of a build they did. The build quality is fantastic, and I kept everything pretty much as it was, including the really kind of annoying flickering that's going on with this light here, which I think is going to be, you know, your storage status, whenever it's accessing storage, which is going to do a lot. I would probably just plug it into any, if it's just an RGB light, but whatever. I just left it all as is, except for swapping out the motherboard, of course, and adding in my other storage. Because I've never done a review where I used it as a daily driver. And I gotta tell you, it is nice to do it that way, because it's not just me running synthetic benchmarks. It's me editing video on it every day. It's me really digging into it and seeing what it can do. I even added some more I/O using a PCIe slot sort of bracket that has 4 USB 2.0s. I was gonna add the USB 3.0 one that I have as well, but I'm just gonna end up having a dedicated streaming system. Stay tuned to see that one. But you know, it means that we're not really doing a pure review here. It is no longer the original product that was built by Skytech. Now, to Skytech's credit, when this started happening with this board, they immediately removed it from the list of available motherboards. And there's now an extensive list of motherboards available, and they don't have the formula board on there anymore, unfortunately. However, very fortunately, they replaced it with the Z690 Maximus Apex board, which is another beautiful white motherboard that is actually more geared towards overclocking, which is why it only has two slots for RAM, 2 DIMM slots, you know, just because you're not going to be using that for a production setup. And if it's going to be for gaming or overclocking, it's perfect. It's an amazing motherboard. A little jealous to whoever gets that one, but hey, I got my formula board. Finally, I'm very happy with that. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed with this for a couple of reasons. First off, this just the lateral move of the Z790. There's really very little generational benefit to going with Z790. And with AMD having 24 lanes of PCIe Gen 5, I'm hoping that this is something that will be addressed with Z890 motherboards and that chipset with 14th gen Intel, which, by the way, is very likely to not be an LGA 1700 socket. So yeah, you won't be able to put a 14th gen processor on a Z790 or Z690 motherboard, very likely, if the pattern we've been seeing for many years is going to continue at Intel. I do wish that would be a thing of the past, but you know, I suppose it's been working for them for a while. What it comes down to is this. I mean, it turns out that I kind of just helped to shape the 40 series builder to help them troubleshoot some stuff. That is very gratifying, and I don't blame Skytech for having any kind of hiccups or issues like that. I will say that if you're getting in new motherboards, to look out for those kinds of things. PCIe layout is something that I am obsessed with, and when I'm shopping for a motherboard, I will have 8 different motherboard manuals up comparing the connectivity and the way that you're going to have bifurcation. That's what that's called. If this goes from X16 to X8, that's called bifurcation. It's being cut in half. So yeah, and that's basically something that I would look out for. Now, most will tell you that having X8 slots of PCIe Gen 5 is okay, and a lot of testing in actual gaming shows that that's fine. Synthetic benchmarks are not real world applications. They are literally designed to just put things to the test. And while that was running, of course, it didn't affect any of the CPU's performance. The CPU was running fine, and CPU scoring was fine. It was the GPU scoring that was well below the average for the hardware that we have. So, and that was only in 2 benchmarks, and that was repeatable. It was repeatable. I ran it several times. And with reboots and everything, in case you're wondering, for those benchmarkers out there. And that could actually come down to an issue with the motherboard when it is bifurcated. When bifurcation is occurring, it may be just some kind of inefficiency with running at X8. So it's definitely something to look out for. Okay, the PC was still running quite well. I was still able to do video editing and all kinds of stuff on it while I was waiting for the motherboard replacement. That went fine. So day-to-day usage, you're not really going to be affected if that kind of thing occurs. But with a quick download of Hardware Info 64, you can actually go to the readout there, and it'll tell you whether it's running at X16 or X8 lanes. Okay, so make sure you check that. That's also the place to go to make sure that your RAM is running at the spec that's intended if you don't want to get into the BIOS yourself, some things like that. Now let's get into some of the actual review stuff. By the way, I asked them, I was like, do you guys want me to send that other board back? They were like, nah, that's okay. So maybe once it gets a BIOS update, I'll get back to it and I'll give it some testing and see if it's able to read the boot drive on another M.2 socket and make sure that's all fine, and actually see how affected the performance is when it's bifurcated. Might as well test it out. Anyway, let's get to the actual review stuff. Now, of course, the combination of the 13900K and the 4090 has been tested very thoroughly on other channels. But let's go ahead and throw some synthetic benchmarks up there, and here they are. And the 13900K is an absolute beast when it comes to multi-threaded performance and all-core workloads, multi-core workloads, tile-based rendering. Cinebench scores were through the roof. Of course, you can expect some pretty high temps even with a massive cooling solution like this one that's just going to be par for the course. With a chip like this, it is not a subtle piece of silicon. No subtle sand over here. Nope, not at all. It is, for the power conscious, it's not the best choice. And what I'd like to see maybe in the future is that Intel sort of add in, an easy sort of one-click eco mode where it can run at a lower wattage. You can, of course, undervolt your own CPU if you're experienced with that, but I'd like to see that become a thing where it's just in a one-click thing in the BIOS, or maybe have it in XTU, Intel's Extreme Tuning utility, have it instead of extreme tuning, do a little detune on it just to help save on power and thermals. I'm sure right now if you're running one of these, you're happy with it because it's helping keep your room warm during the winter, but when summer comes along, yeah, I live in Texas. I have to think about those kinds of things. Anyway, we're gonna be moving in a couple months. My next studio it's gonna be not gonna be in an air-conditioned room, it's gonna be in the garage. I'm gonna have to figure all that out. And of course the GPU it really is, say what you want about pricing, and I certainly do in my System Integrator Weekly videos, which you'll usually see every Monday, where I talk about different system integrators, what the best deals are. We sort of approach it differently every Monday, yada yada. Say what you want about the pricing of the two offerings that NVIDIA has right now. The 4090 is actually the better performance per dollar deal than the 4080. It's only $100 more than the launch price, launch MSRP of the Founders Edition 3090 2 years ago, for a lot more performance. A lot more power usage too, but then again, we get back to Skytech using an appropriately upgraded ATX 3.0 power supply with the native 12VH PWR connector. Or as Paul would say it, 12VH power. That one, if you know, you know. So let's throw up a couple of gaming benchmarks here. There you go. Keep in mind, these benchmarks are not on a clean system. I've been using this system. I have a lot of programs that have been installed on it, likely running some background processes, though I have shut down as many as I can. This is just a couple of benchmarks to sort of give you an idea of, well, I mean, if you want really thorough benchmarks, you got Hardware Unboxed, Gamers Nexus, and those, they have some tools and operating procedures that I don't currently have implemented. If you want benchmarks, that's the place to go. What I wanted to share with you guys was the day-to-day usage, and it's seriously the most powerful hardware that I've ever had on a consumer desktop system. It's absolutely insane. And it's sad to me that this is going to be the end of the LGA 1700 socket, well, except for the 13900KS, which is going to be a thing. It's pretty crazy. Not for everyone. In fact, to be absolutely clear, most of you who go to the Mark 40 builder through the link in the description below. And by the way, use code SWARM, SWARM, to get yourself a nice discount on that system. Thank you for supporting the channel by doing that, by the way. And it saves you money. Hey, everybody wins. It's a good setup for everybody. Most of you do not need a 13900K. Yes, there is a little bit of benefit when it comes to performance, but the 13700K is nearly identical in gaming performance in most games. And if gaming is all you're doing, do not get the 13900K. If you're gonna have a multi-purpose system, like you're gonna be running a stream with a lot of stuff going on, or if you're gonna be doing video editing, content creation, any 3D workflow, any kind of CAD, SolidWorks, that kind of stuff, and you need a lot of cores. Coding, if you're gonna be doing any coding, code compiling, it's an amazing processor for that. 24 cores, 24 cores. Yeah, it's an absolute workhorse. And that's what that's for. The slight performance benefit that you get in gaming is not worth the couple $100 extra that it costs, plus the kind of crazy power usage. I mean, in some Gamers Nexus testing, they were showing what, 285, 295 watts, something like that, peak power draw on a CPU. This little chip like that equals heat output, you see? Speaking of heat output, let's talk about the case. I just continue to love the Phanteks P500A. It is such a good looking case. I love I used to not like RGB. If you look at my previous system, if you go back to my 3070 video, way back in the day when this all started with the Prebuilt coverage, I had a system with like 0 RGB. Just this old Corsair AIO had a tiny bit, that was it. I didn't even plug the RGB in. I was, it was give or take for me, I didn't really care. Until I was like, well, I'm a content creator, or I'm becoming a streamer now, I should get into RGB. And then once I started seeing some RGB centric builds, there was no going back for me. I do enjoy me some RGB now. Whether it's subtle or not so subtle, I enjoy it. But aside from that, it cools beautifully. The porosity on the front mesh is so nice, which is great because it's the only filter. This is a single filter setup here, single filtration setup. So you don't have double filtration, which I'm not a fan of. When you have two mesh in front of each other, there's too much of a chance that they'll sort of kind of block whatever little bit of opening there is. So it's actually the air is you get turbulence, you get block, you get restriction. Now, and even though there's no really fine mesh filter there, I gotta tell you that I dropped something. And I gotta say, it really does catch a lot. It catches a lot of dust. This is a pretty old house. It gets fairly dusty, clean as we might. And boy, the next studio is gonna be in a garage. So I'm gonna try to clean that place out as much as possible. Get, some AC in there and air filter and stuff. But look at this. Gross. And that was only this half of it here. So yeah, it does a great job of catching dust and just getting tons of airflow. I really do like it. Plus, though I really love the LANcool 3, which you're gonna see back in the set here pretty soon for my streaming system, for my 7950X build that I got. It doesn't, having the glass door on the right side, just, why do you do that? It's just showing the covers. That's all. Okay, whatever. Anyway, very somewhat similar cases, more mechanical complexity in that one. But all in all, what I want to really convey with this review, for those of you out there who want the absolute top performance that you can buy right now, and probably for months to come, Intel is currently the way to go. If you want that top performance, and if you're the type that you want to get the best performing thing that you can get right now, and pretty much not touch it at all. Just run it into the ground for the next 5 years or so, 4 years or so, and then eventually just buy a whole new system or build a whole new system. Then the Intel build is the thing for you, because this is going to be the end of LGA 1700 once 14th gen comes out, okay? Now, if you're the type where you do want to be able to do incremental upgrades, or say after 3 or 4 years, just say upgrade your CPU and get a huge multi-generational uplift in performance, then Intel isn't really accommodating that. That's not really part of their plan. They give you a couple of years with a socket, 2 generations of processors, and that's it. Now that's their design. That's how they're doing things. it's been working for them for a while. I do wish that they would, support that socket for longer. I mean, you would have probably lead to less e-waste that way. So for the planet, maybe we can think about that. That would probably be good. I feel like if Intel really set their minds to maximizing performance with a fixed number of pins for several years, 3 or 4, 5 maybe, that they could do some amazing things. I really believe that. So here's hoping that the next socket is going to be the last socket for a while. That's what I'm hoping for. I think that would be a very pro-consumer move on the part of Intel to start supporting that, and I would just high five all of y'all if that's possible. Is that possible? That'd be a lot of high fives. Y'all have a lot of employees. Whew, maybe not. Anyway, but as for the build itself, Juan did a fantastic job. Honestly, it was just that was the first Mark 40 system they had built, and he was just following SOP, their standard operating procedure of putting the M.2 in that first socket. I do wish that had been sort of caught in because that's live on stream. They don't even really get into Windows or anything or in the BIOS during the stream. They do the build, they light up the RGB, bam, there you go. And then it gets sent off to the lab for testing, for staging, and then for benchmarking and stress testing. We've heard on a couple other reviews, including one of my own, that QC needs to be beefed up over at Skytech, and losing half of your PCIe lanes on your GPU is something that should be caught by QC. Okay, you guys at Skytech, you don't send me these things because I let you off easy. You send me these things because I catch this stuff, and I hope that it is helpful. That's all I'm saying. Because their responsiveness was excellent, how quickly they removed that motherboard from the configurator very early on in its existence, and it really probably saved a whole lot of headaches. So that actually makes me feel really good about the fact that I have been working with Skytech for a little while now on these reviews. And of course, I have more systems coming in, of course, for review. You just check back in, guys, as much as possible, and hit that subscribe button, because I know you guys are curious. You want to know who to go with, who's the best. I truly believe that Skytech is very good at what they do. So I think Skytech is really on the right track here. They're not holding back on sending out systems, and Intel's actually supporting that to help keep assisting them in doing that and sort of making that possible for them. So this is what we want to see. There is no perfect company. There is no perfect product. There's no such thing as a company that never gets anything wrong. Every company is going to have either a mistake or a problem or a series of them. Improvement is not overnight. It takes time. So every company will have slip-ups. That doesn't tell you that they're a bad company or a good company. What determines whether a company is good or bad at what they do is their response when those kinds of things happen. And as even Steve from Gamers Nexus has said plainly, Skytech's response is very good. When they're told straight up, this was bad and you should have done better, they're like, yes, yeah, we should have, and we will. We're gonna put effort into this, and we're gonna do our best. So, hey, 2023 is looking bright. I can't wait to see what you guys do then, and of course, work with you guys some more, and of course, provide more videos for you, the audience, for you, the viewer. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you don't miss them, because sometimes YouTube doesn't feel like showing you my videos. And yeah, I can't wait. 2023 is going to be incredible. Heading to CES in just a few short days. I can't wait. I've been waiting for this for a very long time. So keep an eye out for CES coverage. And don't forget that very shortly after this video goes live, we're going to have the giveaway stream where I'm going to be building a system live on stream in a custom Height Y60 case, custom wrapped by Candy Berry, and it's going to be absolutely awesome. We're going to be announcing the winner then, plus we're going to be announcing the winner for the Falcon Northwest giveaway, also made possible by Intel. Intel's busy, man. Y'all doing a lot. So that's going to be on the Team Excluded Twitch channel, and maybe concurrently on my YouTube channel streaming that. We'll see if that's possible. But thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I appreciate you. And until the next one, take care.